Salute from the kingdom of the Son of God and Jesus Christ in San Gabriel Valley. We're going to talk about Colossians 2 today in vain philosophies. Don't forget your cell phone and it's charged up. You want it?
Yeah, could you just put it down, please?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about vain philosophies that modern Christians have bought into. Paul warns us about that, and I think a lot of people don't appreciate the context in which he wrote this. In Colossians 2:8, Paul says, "Take heed lest there shall be anyone that maketh spoil of you through his philosophy, in vain deceit after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ." Now, this one verse here is so rich because the rudiments of the world that Paul's talking about are the same rudiments and elements that he talks about in Galatians. It's the law. And that's the context. Because when you go to verse 16, Paul says, or he says, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink." Those were the Levitical food laws. "Or in respect of a feast day or a new moon or a Sabbath day, which are a shadow of the things to come, but the body is Christ." So they were a shadow of the things to come. The body, the substance is Christ, the reality of the kingdom. So then he mentions in verse 14 that Jesus blotted out the bond written in ordinances that was against us, the Mosaic covenant. The Mosaic ordinances were against God's people. Why? Because, one, the Gentiles could not be part of that system. It was against the Gentiles. They were not allowed in the temple grounds. They were not allowed to participate in the sacrificial system, the worship. And it was even against the Israelites because it was a strict law, penalty of which breaking oftentimes was death. The tradition of men, see, the Mosaic law, the Torah, became the tradition of men once Christ resurrected from the dead. Once Christ, quote unquote, finished the work, right? It became a tradition of men. So that's the context. So Paul says, don't be. So I'm going to go, let's go to the concordance here. We're going to look at the word rudiments in verse 8. Looking to be safe. You good? Bye. See you, my mom's.
Okay.
All right. Good day. I mean, have a good morning. We'll see each other later. Okay, so Colossians 2. Bye. Rudiments, 47. Let's see what that means. Stoikon, okay? Stoikon, 47. Stoikion. That's what the word rudiments means. Hey, greetings to see you, Christian man. Yep, greetings. It's raining over here, so we got non-sunny weather. Okay, so what does the stoikon mean? Element, rudiment, principle. Okay. And notice that Paul in Galatians uses the same word as he's using in Colossians 2:8. That don't be taken spoiled, don't be spoiled by those through their philosophy and tradition of men. They try to spoil you through the rudiments of the world. Okay? And that word world, I think Paul's using cosmos here. Let's see. Matter of fact, let's put this aside for a second and use this. Rudiments of the world. Yeah, that's cosmos. Okay, so when we go to Galatians chapter 4, and this is used in several places, but I'm going to go to Galatians, just those two spots. The word is used in Galatians 4:9. But now after you have known God, or rather are known to God, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, rudiments, same word, 47:47 stoikon in the Greek, whereunto you desire again to be in bondage. And the context is you observe days, Sabbath, months, new moons, and years, feast days. It's that simple. All right, man, have a good one. So when Paul says, do not, in Colossians 2:8, don't be cheated by spoiled, which means to be stripped, may be made spoil of. Let's see what that is in the Greek. Spoil. Stripped, I believe. Spoil. Let's see. 48. Man, that's a little. 48. 12. Let's see what that means. Okay, sula gogeo, to spoil, to carry off captive as a slave, to lead away from the truth and subject to one's sway. Okay, this is what many are trying to do in the Hebrew roots movement. Okay, Christ finished the work. Christ brought an end to the law of Moses. The law and the prophets were until John, and since then the kingdom of God was being preached. The law, according to Paul, was until the seed should come. So what Paul's saying when he mentions the word elements, rudiments, he's talking about the Mosaic law. And he's saying that don't let anybody take spoil of you, may take you captive, lead you astray from the truth. They have two Greek words for spoil. Let me go to 2071 and see what that says. Isomai. Yeah, I don't see where that. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. But anyways, we got a good definition of what spoil is: being taken captive, to be led away from the truth, to be swayed by one that leads you away from the truth, right? And what is noteworthy today is you have the rise of the Hebrew roots movement. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to lead you away from the truth that Christ finished the work at the cross and subsequently in heaven by pouring his blood on the mercy seat of heaven. And they want to bring you back into these beggarly elements, the rudiments, the stoikon. When Paul talks about rudiments and elements, he's talking about the Mosaic ordinances of worship, which was until John, until the seed came. And Christ came 2,000 years ago. And Paul says, let no man, there shall take heed lest there shall be any one of that makes spoil of you, take you captive away from the truth through their philosophy and tradition of men. Why? Once the Mosaic law was fulfilled, trying to keep it became a tradition of man, because man, the synagogue of Satan, the Pharisee religion, which is now rabbinical, the rabbinic religion, tells you have to still keep these things. Tradition of men. After the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, what's the world? What's cosmos? Cosmos just means a constitutional government, an orderly arrangement. The world in the context, oftentimes in the New Testament, is talking about Israel. The rudiments of the world and not after Christ. Why? Because these people are trying to lead you away from following Christ in the new and better covenant, and they're trying to lead you astray back into Mosaic things that have no part in the new covenant. And that's what people are not appreciating about Colossians 2:8. But what's even more important is realizing the context in which this is written. in the context this is written is Christ's kingship. The kingdom of the Son of God is now ushered in, which is the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of David, the new Davidic kingdom. And he says, Paul says, we give thanks unto the Father who hath made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light, who delivered us out of the power of darkness. Guess who was in darkness at the arrival of Christ? Not just the Gentiles, but the Israelites, the Judeans, Judah. They were in darkness. Judah was in darkness. Read Isaiah 9. He says he has delivered us and translated us into the kingdom of the Son of his love. So Christ is king. He has a kingdom. Colossians 1:15, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, meaning he's king over all creation. Firstborn title of the Davidic king. Psalm 89:27, I have made you my firstborn, ruler over the kings of the earth. So Jesus is now ruler over the kings of the earth. He is Jehovah's firstborn, the Davidic king of the new covenant era, eternal Davidic king. And therefore, we don't need to keep these Old Testament things, these old covenant things. Anybody who tells you you do, they're trying to lead you away from the truth. Salute from the kingdom of the Son of God in Jesus Christ. Praise Jehovah God, the one true God, and his only begotten Son, our now reigning Davidic King Jesus Christ. Hail Christ, hail victory.